It is indeed a beautiful track, Jesse, with a beautiful scenery as well. We talked about it before in Imola with ACC. Portimao is a beautiful track, but Mugello might be the most beautiful of them all. Italy as a country is indeed very beautiful. Well, qualifying here at Mugello, 52 seconds remaining. And we can see that some GTPs already got some time on the board. Same counts for the GTTs. Shevchenko in his BMW currently on provisional pole. Conway in second in the Porsche, and Roskam currently in third. And as you can see, only divided by 2/10 the GTT field. So it might get really exciting here today, Jesse.
Yeah, it will. And we do apologize if we weren't going out immediately, but I'll just do the preamble anyway. They started racing in the region here in Tuscany in the 1920s road racing style as it was in the day, but it would take them all the way to 1973 to get a permanent facility here in the Florence region of Tuscany. And there we got the Mugello circuit that we still race on today. A predominant bike racing track that has taken hold with sports car racing as of late, owned, of course, by Ferrari. This is the Autodromo Internazionale di Mugello, otherwise known as the Mugello circuit. And it is a brilliant sight to behold. Qualifying has just wrapped up. Mikael Sundstrom has set the pace again in GTP at 32.5 over Mach's 32.9. Jordan Daly at a 34.1. Billy Octane also in the field, unable to get a valid lap. Benjamin Heilman on pole again here in LMP2. It's a 35.4. Hereford Smith in P2, 36.1. A huge gap there between those two cars. Holland in third, a 36.8. Ted Edwards also did not post the time and will start fourth. GTD, Strutsenko on pole with a 49.1, just over Harry Conway, 1/100th of a second there or thereabout between the BMW and the Porsche on the front row of GTD. Roscoe at a 49.3, Tikhonov at a 50.1. Radiani did not set a valid time in quali. Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zutphen with Ash Bibby behind the cameras. And today is a sunny day, but Dan, it's not going to stay like that.
No, apparently it is going to rain at the end of the rain. Our broadcaster Ash Bibi is 100% convinced it's gonna rain in the very last 10 minutes of this race. But for now, with the race beginning, it is a very hot day here at Autodromo del Mugello. Currently 41.1 track degrees, and so tires will probably be absolutely shed in this race, Jesse.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the cars do with the tire wear here. It's going to be interesting to see. We saw that over the last few weeks. We saw that at Portimao as well, with the tire wear coming into play late in the race, and it definitely changed the complexion of the battles there. Well, we're setting off for the pace lap, which can mean only one thing. It's time to remind you of what the championship standings look like in the three classes on offer. Starting, of course, with GTP, the top class. Mikael Sundstrom is absolutely having their way with this field. Bart Macha, again, with Mikael being the class of the field here this season. They're still quite close in points. Could go either way here in today's penultimate round of the series. Le Mans, the decider, in 1 week's time. 117 to 290. Daly in third place, still hanging in there at 256. You've got Billy Octane in fourth place, 184 over Tomas. That's your top five. Behind them, of course, Martins, Bathier, Bullwinkle, Glenn, Ingman, Zufen. Hey, we know that guy. Ritter and Steven Borsa, your 13 drivers that have entered in GTP. In the LMP2 category, Benjamin Heilman has shown the way. Their average start and finish, they've been absolutely immaculate in this championship thus far. Starting position, finishing position at 1. They could do no better. They have a commanding lead over Ashley Holland, who has 269 points. But the battle for the podium spots is on. Hereford Smith, who qualified P2 here today, has 255 and is still well within striking distance of P2. Ted Edwards has 215, not out of it yet. And, of course, behind them, Alex Pilbeam inside the top 5. Kamferger, Leinard, Thomas, Alexi, Chris Cardis, Matthew Malcolm, and Delhi, your 12 drivers in LMP2. Moving on to GTD, the GT classic car everybody is familiar with. This championship is starting to teeter in the favor of Alexander Strutsenko. They average a second place finish. They've got 4 wins thus far. It's just about picture perfect for Strutsenko. Radiani, though, giving chase with their win, still in the fight here. Makhmudov in third place, 215 points, 1 point in front of Roscom for that final step of the podium overall. Tikhonov in 5th place, of course, with 183. Behind them, Kupe Sinyov, Koku, Hilden, Bryant, Mesher Yakov, Conway, Shinsky, and Tom Roberts, the 13 cars in GTD. We talked about the weather potentially going to be bad at the end of this race. The Porsche GTPs and all the GTPs wearing out their tires here today. The track, something like a cheese grater with these cars, these high downforce, high load corners here around Mugello, not playing nice. The LMP2s have been struggling with grip, and the GTDs, those are the cars that you would expect, right, Dan, to have the most sort of security. But the last couple of weeks, dating all the way back to Sebring, that hasn't been the case.
Yes, especially in Portimao, we have seen a lot of struggles in the GTD category, especially with those rear tires, especially when it's hot, and today is no exception. So it's gonna be a challenge for all of the drivers, all the field, all the categories to, well, keep the tires alive, don't overheat them too much, and really survive. It's been a trend since the Daytona race when it was raining that the trend is really surviving, and the goal is really surviving, and see if they all will. But that hasn't been the case for a lot of those races. And Jesse, we are about to start, and Sundstrom is in the lead.
He sure is. Sundstrom and Macha, it's been that way the entire season, and immediately over to the right is Mark Macha, and that will be a 3-car train with Daly in the rears there with Octane as well. No drama there, no drama in LMP2 either. Benjamin Heilman gets cleanly away, who for the first time last week at Portimao actually drove away from the field. They didn't really have to earn it, so to speak. They were just the class of the field was Heilman. They're all single file. 3 wide in the back here for GTD, though. Radiani, Roscom, and Tikhonov all fighting over that spot, and it's Strutsenko out in front, single file with Harry Conway, and finally down to 2 wide into turns 1 and 2. It looks like Tikhonov has ducked into line in behind, trying to get by both Roscom and Radiani, who continue to be side by side. Looks like Theobald Roscom. No, they're still side by side, in fact. Look in the background. It is Radiani and Roscom still side by side. Somebody's going to have to give. And it's Theobald Roscom, the number 29 of Radiani. So many Porsches, so little time, but finally won by the 29 there as Roscom has to fall in line in 4th.
Something happened to Jordan Daly, currently in P4, and Daly had a big moment. It looks like it. He was driving P3 at that moment. Yes, in the gravel, a little bit of damage. He didn't have his day in Portimao, and it looks like he won't have his day as well in the gravel traps at Mugello. Jordan Daly, cold tires, spins around, and he needs to climb his way all back to the pack again. A 14-point-ish second gap to P3, that's Billy Octane there in the Porsche, but Jordan Daly has almost ruined his race before it already began. As we can see, Ted Edwards currently battling with Holland, as we have already completed the first step. Now coming over that very huge straight, F1 cars reach a top speed of 320 kilometers per hour, even more with DRS attached to it. Now into the entry of San Donato, Ted Edwards brakes early compared to Holland with the Yorkshire T livery, and in the background you can see the faster GTP of Jordan Daly trying to overtake them as the lap progresses, and the GTD field looks clean. We saw a lot of accidents in Portimao, but Jesse, that doesn't seem the case here today.
No, right you are, Dan. That was absolutely clean, and for the first time in many weeks, that's been the case here. The one incident, of course, Daly didn't even make it to the wall. He was able to rejoin the track, albeit in 4th place. A couple of things from Portimao when we left off that were still question marks in our head was not necessarily the battle between Macha and Sundstrom. That was brilliant to watch in the closing laps of Portimao. What we were more interested in was the struggles of the LMP2 car of Ted Edwards and the GTP of Daly. They had a lot of, I don't know if it was considered at the time, tire issues. We were told post-race that was all track temperature that had caused that with those cars. It was just the inability to get the car to hook up, which led to all those spins, and once you heat the tires up, they were done and dusted, and that's what caused those issues, and we're hoping they would not have the same fate today. Very out of character stuff. You know, it's not out of character. These good fights right here. Billy Octane right there thinking about, not Billy Octane, excuse me, Ted Edwards right there thinking about how he's going to defend from some of these other cars, and he's not been able to do it there as that is Daly. Matter of fact, that's Daly going through. I was trying to figure out how we got a GTP lapping them already, but of course not. Daly had their incident. They would have ended up behind the LMP2 field. I've got that right in my head now. Some of the cars look similar. We know what an SJ&H car looks like versus an HWT versus a nearly on pace car and a connection lost car. But when they're all in different categories, it does confuse the mind for a moment when you're looking at the livery and not actually the manufacturer or the style of the car. I digress. Mikael Sundstrom doing exactly what they've done for just about every round of this championship.
Yes, indeed. 1.1 seconds is the gap, and Holland tries to attack Ted Edwards on the inside there of the technical section. Just thought about it, but needs to back off for the moment. But no doubt, Holland will probably overtake Ted Edwards soon. Because, well, he's on his back all for numerous of laps, and he must overtake the LMP2. Very technical track Imola with, of course, the very long straight, but that's almost the only straight you get around here. This is coming through that very last corner. In 2020, right when COVID hit, we had a massive safety car incident in F1. If you still remember, Giovinazzi crashed under Williams. Williams almost flew up in the air, and it was a horrible incident. Luckily, no such incident here today, but it was quite spectacular as those LMP2s again enter San Donato, followed by Luco, and then the third corner of the track, Poggio Secco. Lovely Italian track corner names there. But I must agree with Jesse what he said earlier on about the high track temperatures. It's just it can be a little bit too high, and what I experienced in Sebring is when the track gets too high, if you get in an incident, if you spin, it's impossible to cool those tires down, and there's not a lot of grip because the track is hot, and there's not a lot of grip because your tires are too hot, and that stays for almost the remainder of the race unless you lose a lot of time by driving off the racing line. And so it can get a little bit too hot on tracks on numerous of occasions. Oh, that is that the BMW of Stratsenko indeed makes a mistake, and it opens the door for Harry Conway, and the Porsche might possibly open the door for Rattiani as well. But fact is, and fact remains, Stratsenko loses P1, Jesse.
Well, here's the thing about Harry Conway. He was just about the best night-owl driver that there's ever been, and it has taken him a few weeks here in iRacing to get up to speed. But one thing we know about Harry Conway, you don't make mistakes around Harry Conway because he will eat you up. And it was just, looks like they missed the corner a little bit, did Stratsenko. Harry Conway was already right there piling on the pressure in that Porsche, and they've gotten the lead away from the BMW. Shout out to Carlos Kaladian in chat, who pointed out that Roscoe was P4 in the championship, and the GTD field, it was only a few points behind third. That's an interesting battle that we'll continue to follow all the way through Le Mans next week, because if Roscoe can get by Rattiani and can continue their good work, they could end up in a solid P3 position at the end of this championship, with a lot of racing, a lot of miles between now and the finale in 1 week's time. Still got a whole race here to go, and potential weather coming in. But keep that in the back of your brain as a potential upset. And of course, we will know when the weather is coming in, but we don't know exactly what impact that's going to have, and if these positions are going to be settled. I'll tell you one thing, Conway and Stratsenko, that's definitely not settled right now.
No, indeed. As you can see, Stratsenko on the inside tried about it, thought about it. Should I go for that move? Do I want to go for that move? And then backed out of it at the very last moment into the technical section. Once again, now coming through Poggio Secco, turn 3 and onto a semi-straight, let's call it. And then on to turn 4, Maserati. Can be confused by Maserati, of course, but very nice train here of GTD cars. We can see in the background Roscam in P4. Behind that, Tikhonov. I did see a yellow flag behind Matja's name, but he seems to be fine just yet. 3.4 seconds, so he probably did make a mistake. Last lap was a 35. Oh, indeed, through the gravel, held it together. Could have ended much worse if he lost control, but Matja keeps it on track. Last lap time was a 1:35.1. Sundström did a 1:34.6. So Sundström does favor these conditions maybe a little bit as well. We've seen it throughout the season. He does favor and can cope with the hot conditions. So Sundström, maybe with no surprise, still in the lead. Jordan Daly is creeping up a little bit on Octane there, but Octane still remains in P3 for now. And as I said earlier, Roscam currently in P4. And we can already see the first CTP cars, Jesse, coming up on the lapped traffic.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot of lap traffic, but it's something you got to be aware of. These huge sweeping corners where you sort of cascade to the natural exit points. You've got to be very careful if you are a slower class car, and also very careful if you are a faster class car. You got to know where the other drivers are going to be, and especially with these tight battles here. And you see Mikael Sundström nearly on pace. That Acura, that's the leader of the race overall, coming up to the leaders here in GTD. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is the worst case scenario for Mikael Sundström, getting them in a section here, a nice flowing rhythmic section. And Mikael's playing this incredibly respectfully, and so is Harry Conway. Gave him the outside. Now that absolutely hampered Harry Conway's sector number 1, the end of it here, and that allowed Strutsenko to make up a little bit of time. They weren't really separated to begin with, but that did nothing but hurt Harry Conway, and all that was Harry being incredibly polite. And now here come Bart Macha and the rest of the GTPs working their way through the GTD traffic.
Look at Bart Macha, he's really almost struggling with the rear of that GTP. He needs to be careful now that he doesn't overheat all 4 tires. I saw him sliding, and that's Strutsenko making a pass on the Porsche. Does provide him to not make that move, and there's the Porsche of Rattiani on the outside as we almost end this lap for the GTDs and the GTPs, and Rattiani does make that move stick, so he's currently in P2, and Strutsenko doesn't have the easiest of races, a lot of wiggles there, and even Roskam can maybe overtake Strutsenko, not something we've been used to of Strutsenko. Normally he's quite dominant, normally he has the pace advantage, but Strutsenko...
Oh no, big crash!
That's a huge crash, Jesse.
The 3 cars under a blanket have all crashed. Harry Conway gets away. Rattiani, Roskam, and Strutsenko all ended up in a pile. I have no idea what happened to Rattiani. That's the car of many colors that you see on your screen. I don't know what happened to the 96. We're going to find out. We are going to. Gets under Conway, locks it up, locks it down. It's a Porsche, and he spins it out right into the path of the other cars in their class, because the outside, Dan, was taken up by a prototype. There was nowhere to go. 3 cars, 3 out of the 5 in GTD, have been involved in a crash here again today.
Wow, that's something you don't see very often, as Holland still trying to pass that was at the beginning of the lap there, but that is indeed well, it's not a strange incident. Rattiani tried to overtake Harry Conway too soon, touched Harry Conway a little bit, lost control, and well, as you say, Jesse, everyone piled up against him on the side of him, and it's not a happy sight for Strutsenko. Rattiani, they are currently in pit lane. Don't know if they are out as well, or they are on their out lap, I think, given what the Delta says, but what I was going to say, Strutsenko, we don't normally see a lot of mistakes from the BMW driver, but he did it. He just can't find to see his feet in Mugello, and well, it has gotten to show what can happen if you don't well drive away from the ones around you. Harry Conway most certainly did, and is currently on P1. Holland still trying to overtake that Edwards. I said it was a matter of if, not when, Holland would overtake that Edwards, but right now I'm not so sure anymore.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Just to go back to the GTD field right there, Rattiani didn't do anything wrong. Rattiani wrecks that car because he's respecting Harry Conway. He could have spun Harry Conway. He could have adored Harry Conway. He did not. Rattiani spun himself out due to discretion being the better part of valor right there. That's what happens. And his only crime was trying to break a Porsche mid-corner, and that's exactly what this is. He gets a little too hard on the brakes. These mid-rear engine cars, they don't like that, and it basically just unloads it when you're braking like that. And he's trying to keep it off of Conway, realizes that the lines are going to converge. He had an opportunity. Conway gave him room, and the car just goes around, completely not his fault, in some ways to his own detriment. So Rattiani down to 4th. Strutsenko, your championship leader, is down to 5th, as I believe Ted Edwards and Holland have just had a crash of some variety as well. Theobald Roskam, who came in 4th in the championship, is up to P2. That fight for 3rd overall, or 3rd in that class, is very much on. This was the fight between Holland and Ted Edwards, and it's gone wrong. That was for P3 and LMP2. And that, what happened there, Dan? Like, what did you make of that?
Well, it did look like netcode, because it was clear that we saw Holland touching that Edwards on the right, but then he didn't touch, It's just a sad angle for a touch, really, because what happened there is Holland touched Ted Edwards there on the rear right, and as a result, Ted Edwards wanted to, well, stay inwards, or the car lost control inwards of Holland, and they collected themselves, and thus well, not a huge incident, but a incident found place. Oh, and that's a huge incident for Jordan Daly losing control.
That's Billy Octane.
Oh, that's Billy Octane with the same
livery. Cars are, yeah, they are the same team.
Wow. Well, that was a huge incident for Billy Octane. Lost the rear there.
Oh, dear.
Well, into the wall you go, Jesse.
Yeah, Billy Octane, we saw both the SJ and H cars have that issue. Daly, the more fortunate of the two. Billy Octane, who told me pre-race today that he was not feeling the racetrack, the conditions, anything here today. And unfortunately, he has met a early end. And I worry that is based on just the feelings that he's had of the day. So Octane in the garage. That car can rejoin at any time, but for right now, the 33 SJ and H car, the Porsche, in the garage. Everybody else that's had incidents, Radiani, Strutsenko, they have all continued on at this point there. So that's the way it's all shaped up. Edwards and Holland have also kept going. Neither of those cars, despite the contact and the spin, have come into pit lane. One note about that LMP2 incident for third place we witnessed, that couldn't have been particularly good on the tires, but here they are again, back together again, fighting over P3.
Praying this battle doesn't end here with Holland and Ted Edwards. Holland does have some damage at the front, it does seem. Ted Edwards probably does have some damage as well. But Holland probably has a lot of damage, or well, more than Ted Edwards in any case. And well, my feeling says it's just too hot on the track currently as we go through the last corner onto the main straight to, well, begin another lap for those LMP2s. And well, the track is 37.8 degrees, which is already quite hot. But you know, it might rain, and given the clouds at the back of the circuit do tend to look a little bit dark as Holland tries to scare Ted Edwards. There doesn't work on the outside, though. Can he make that? The offset is just a little bit too big, and so he has to wait another lap or some more corners to overtake that Edwards. But Holland trying everything out of his bag to overtake that Edwards. That Edwards just does place his car incredibly well, and can keep Holland that way behind him as they approach a lapped GTP. They need to work their way around it. Can cause some chaos in this fight, as that Edwards probably needs to take an alternative line, maybe slows down. Holland, can he try something? Can he go for the outside? That Edwards does need to slow down. Maybe can give Holland an opportunity, but it doesn't seem to be so. Holland does have a great exit. Is he besides him? He does have the outside again. Lovely battle to watch once again. Then they're almost done with the lap as we go into turn 12 Corrienta. I'm not going to pronounce any more Italian corner names. So a great battle in any case, Jesse, and I can't get enough of this.
Yeah, that's really good between these two cars, and they've not been shook for confidence, and I expected these cars to be sliding around a little bit more after those flat spots that they inevitably had. Both of them locked it up. Ted a little bit worse for wear there, because after the contact, Holland ended up in the gravel, so that's less tire deg, but Ted Edwards ended up backwards on the racetrack, locking it down, which is what you're supposed to do per the racing regulations here at RCI, but that would have done no favors for the tires in their current stead. And I will say that it looks a little worse for pace, does the number 8 Ted Edwards car, but it's not really fractured his confidence. This car a week ago was sliding all over the place, looks way more in control. Well, just as I say,
yes,
that's a little bit of a catch right there, but realistically, they're still on it. I thought Ted was going wide because he couldn't get the car turned, and now I start to wonder if on some of these corners he's going wide on purpose, almost defensively, knowing that Holland cannot go the long way around some of these really big sweeping turns, and he's doing that very much on purpose. We saw them pass the leader in GTD, Harry Conway. How big of an accident was that for GTD? Well, Harry Conway was leading prior to that, you'll recall, the majority of that field was involved in an incident. The only one not was Theobald Roscom, who's P2. That is a 10-second gap. Harry Conway, as long as he doesn't get too many track limit warnings, 17 of them, of course, he is allotted. As long as he doesn't get 17 or 18 rather to get a penalty, he is on easy street. 10 seconds clear. Cannot see the people behind him. It is a good day to be the SJ&H Porsche.
Yes, it is indeed. And I'm just starting to wonder something. LMP2 is, of course, a spec class, as it should be. But it seems that Holland has a little bit of a larger front end than Ted Edwards. Might just be me. Could have been because of the damage, but Holland tries to attack Ted Edwards anyway, coming into turn 1. San Donato, can he do it this time on the brakes? Who's braver? It seems to be Holland, but he needs to take the long way around, and Edwards does have the advantage of the inside, but the corner outside turns to the inside, and Ted Edwards is still there. He can't overtake Ted Edwards for now. Holland can, and so he still needs to wait a little bit longer, maybe on the inside this time, but it's such a flowing track that on the inside or the outside doesn't really matter. Holland really needs to work for it now, but it's just not enough. Ted Edwards keeps that third place, and well, we all love this battle, and Ted Edwards just placing his car incredibly perfect to keep that P3 as well once again, and it's amazing to see, Jesse, but I just can't get enough, and hopefully we see some more battles or in the GTD field as well, because well, those gaps are closing in as well. But Holland for now and Ted Edwards do give us the entertainment in this race.
Yeah, see, that's why I think Ted's doing it on purpose. The way that he was able to somehow make his way through turn 1, that move started, and he was finally able to reestablish a lead back in turn number 6, Casanova, and that I feel like he's doing that mostly on purpose, but also it's so hard to pass another car, even if you have a pace advantage like Holland seems to have here, simply because of the nature of the track, the switchback nature. And we're going to see it right here again. A little bigger gap this time between Edwards and Holland. There is a drafting effect, of course, nearly running off, and indeed running off into the grass here on the pit straight. He's going to get close as Holland here. Is it going to be a defensive line for Ted Edwards? No, well, kind of. He shades off to the left and then comes back to the right, and that's going to keep Holland behind him. So no side-by-side through San Donato this time, up into turn 2, Luco and Poggio, and then Maserati. All these turns so very critical. If you can strand your opponent to your outside by the time you get to turn 6, Casanova, and maybe even Savelli, you can somehow end up side by side for a lap, hemorrhaging time to everybody else, yes, but also not putting yourself in too much danger as long as nobody overcooks it or sends it. And I got to say, other than the earlier contact, Holland and Edwards, they have been very, I don't know the correct term for it, but they've given each other room. They've been very nice, and they have not had additional contacts between the two of them. Ash, I have no idea what you just said, but I am afraid to say that on the air. Back to you, Dan.
They've been really, they've been showing great awareness is I think what you're trying to say, because they can, well, fight each other almost blindly as we see it. And keep in mind that because of all this fighting and because of all these alternative lines Holland needing to take, he probably does have some tire wear issues, because Ted Edwards, well, he can sort of relax on most of the insides where he is defending, and Holland just needs to take more and more steering input, and that won't help your front tires. Combine it with the dirty air, and it might be that Holland is feeding his tires a little bit, and you might say, well, that's a little bit early, Dan, but the track is 38.9 degrees, 41.1 at the start, so it might not be that short after all. Matthias Sundström still in the lead, just passes a fastest lap in that class, a 34.212, followed by Bud Mache, who's not doing a bad job currently, a 134.520. Benjamin Hellman is still leading, like usual, we can almost say. I don't want to put a curse on him, but who knows. Followed by Herford Smith, 11 seconds is the gap. However, he did gain a second last lap on Benjamin Hellman. And we can see, I think these two cars are teammates. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the liveries do seem to have a lot of similarities between Harry Conway and Jordan Daly. Jordan Daly in the 197 Porsche, Harry Conway in the 28 Porsche, and he is still leading the GTD class. And as Jesse said earlier in his stream, it's almost a walk in the park for Harry Conway if he does nothing stupid, if he doesn't make any mistakes, and he seems to not be doing so, because Roscom currently is 12.9 seconds behind him. 10 minutes ago that gap was still 10 seconds, and here comes Holland again on Ted Edwards, and he's having a really good slipstream, but he needs to probably take the outside again, and I'm afraid he won't even make it to the first corner. Maybe he can do a surprise attack. It's all that could need him to well, get a place up. Still, it is P4, it remains P4 for Holland, and this battle will rage on for a long time, Jesse.
Yeah, it really will. Of course, we are still talking about the potential of a weather threat here. We saw the radar earlier. There is rain to the south. We're just north of Florence, Italy, by the way, is where Mugello is situated in the Tuscany region. And there was significant rain to the south of here. Now, whether that's coming due north in our direction, we don't know, but it was raining in southern Tuscany. And I will say, considering we're at the very north end of that region, it has come off all cloudy, and it is coming this way. It is coming north. So this is sort of a square. If you imagine the majority of that square being the Tuscan region of Italy, and the dot being somewhere near Florence, that's where we are here at Mugello, and that rain is very much moving in. We've got 32 minutes left of this race here today, and I'm going to tell you something. I'm not a meteorologist, but I know what that looks like to me. That looks like thunderstorms. That looks like significant rain, downpour. No joking about that. That is heavy rain in there. The question is, will we make it to that point before the race is over? I will say, with about 10 minutes or so, I reckon the rain will be here. We checked that map with 5 minutes or so gone, and it was at the very bottom of that square around our region. So that rain's coming. It's a fast-moving storm as well, so it's going to blow in, and it is going to stick around a while. We just hope there's not a lot of the race left. There will be no red flag situation here today. They will have to race it out no matter what the weather ends up being, but that is a lot of rain, a lot of red in that radar.
Yes, indeed, and quite exciting. So I'd love to see some more rain, because, well, it's a matter of surviving this race. So why not throw any rain on it for the sake of it? Because, well, as we said earlier in the stream, it does seem the trend around these races does seem to be surviving. We had some incidents in GTD LMP2 today. We have a DNF, on the GTP category, and well, if you survive, especially in the GTP category, you are guaranteed to get a P3 or higher. Same counts for the LMP2 field, and almost the same counts for the GTD field. So survive, and you might end up with a really good result. And that's really been the trend of these races here today. And well, I can only hope we can get some weather changes. Would be quite refreshment. We haven't seen rain since Daytona. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it would nice to be to include rain in this race, mainly because, well, iRacing did introduce its rain features in March, really kicking it off at the 12 hours of Sebring, and it is popular, the iRacing rain, especially by real racing drivers. It's being compared to real life, and it's definitely the best out there from any racing game on the market. Le Mans Ultimate seems to be close on that as well, but iRacing seems to be the better of it, and I can only hope these RCI drivers will demonstrate the great features of iRacing rain even more.
Absolutely. Cloud cover doing work right now. Part of the racetrack completely covered in clouds now. You'll notice that there's no direct sunlight, and looking back down the pit straight, you can see that's not a mountain that you're looking at. That is a cloud shelf of storm clouds heading this way, assuming that's looking southward. Looking northward, it looks like a beautiful day, and you can see sunshine still here in turns 1 and 2, San Donato and Luco. But as you get closer to the Abaretas and Scarapia, it's very cloudy over in those sections of the racetrack as the rain continues to march this way. We can all but guarantee it's going to rain at some point, and it could be quite heavy indeed. But the reason I bring that up is because the track's definitely cooling down. Several cars setting their quickest lap of the race that time by on these used tires. So that tells you just how much improvement there has been. Mikhail Sundstrom, not this lap, but the lap just prior, ran a 33.9. That was the quickest of the day. Ran a 33.6 this lap, but was dealing with traffic shortly. It was a 36.5 a lap or so ago for Benjamin Heilman. And Radiani ran a 49.3, which is the quickest in the GTD class a lap ago as well. That's not a coincidence. So many cars running quick on the same lap. That is all due to the cloud cover, though now the clouds continue to move. Now 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are back bathed in sunshine, and that's how important it is. We say that in America a lot for qualifying. We say catch a cloud. When we say catch a cloud, we're not talking about vaping. Don't do that. Don't harm yourself or endanger your health. But when we say catch a cloud, we mean it's advantageous to do so because the track's cooler, you run a quicker lap time if you catch a cloud in qualifying. So you ever hear an American say, yeah, we're looking to catch a cloud, they're not talking about doing something silly to our lungs. We're talking about getting that RNGesus roll on the weather so we can set a quick quality time. That's exactly what's happened here in the race, though, for some of these cars.
Yes, and well, they probably needed it because there were a lot of complaints about the hot weather, and well, because as you say, Jesse, because the track sometimes catches a cloud, the track does cool down off a little bit, but with drivers still driving on the track, it won't decrease as fast as possible, but it does probably work, and I can definitely see some rain in the background there. It's already coming up with 28 minutes to go. I can only again hope and pray we will get some rain on this track. It's spoken about this track, it's a 5.2 kilometers track. For the people that don't use the metric system, that is 3.2 miles. Speaking to you, Jesse, the lap record here is a 118.8, of course driven by 7 F1 time world champion Lewis Hamilton, and there was, of course, in 2020. The track has 13 turns, which is quite a lot. Could have been more if the really long straight, possibly one of the longest straights on the F1 calendar in 2020, got decreased a little bit, but it is this way. A really long time ago, there was a track in Tuscany. It was 66.12 kilometers long, absolutely long. You can compare it to Spa, but they've transferred to the 5.2 kilometers since somewhere in the 1970s, 1980s, that my partner in crime described at the beginning of the stream. Now with 26 minutes still to go, we can see Herford Smith with a gap to Benjamin Hellman, 15 seconds, and it was a walk in the park for Harry Conway, but it's a walk in the park for Benjamin Hellman once again, Jesse.
Yeah, Conway has doubled his lead. We last checked in, he was 10.5 seconds ahead. Now he's 20.5 seconds ahead of Theobout Roscom. Roscom's dropped about 2 seconds to Tikhonov. Tikhonov has been caught by Radiani, who continues to set some of the quickest times in their class. That time through, though, Conway was actually the quickest car in their class, but Radiani trying to make up some of that lost time, and that's important for them to do, because Radiani's sitting second in this championship. Roscoe, we talked about what a good day for Theobout could do, and they're absolutely doing it. They were able to make their way through the incident, not get involved, no damage to the number 96 Porsche, and it's all gone to plan. So they stand to take third place today as a given, and also potentially if Radiani does not make up a spot here on Tikhonov, they can make up significant ground on the number 29. But for right now, they're going to be side by side fighting for the position. Tikhonov showing ultimate respect here on the 913, and eventually almost And welcome back to Mugello here on RCI TV. Continuing coverage here. We apologize as we had to step away for a moment. Miss a little, miss a lot. Remember, in the GTP category, we had Billy Octane who DNF'd early. In the interim, unfortunately, when we were away, Jordan Daly had a pretty serious crash and was unable to repair that car, leading to that retirement. Only 2 GTPs out of the 4 that have started are still involved in the top classification. Benjamin Heilman has pitted, so has Hereford Smith, the top 2 cars at LMP2, with 16 minutes left to go. Hereford Smith pitted a lap or so ago, and they are out there on wet weather tires. I've just noticed as well. The fight here for 3rd place in that LMP2 category still on as well. A little bit wide off into the gray, and it's all gone wrong for Holland here.
That's Bart Matje just nearly avoiding the wall there. Currently, that probably is the incident that brought him to a gap of 20.8 seconds there to Sundstrom. So it was a walk in the park for Benjamin Heilman, a walk in the park for Harry Conway, and it now has become a walk in the park for Matthias Sundstrom. So if I don't curse every leader on the track right now, it'll probably be a dominant display from every leader in every category right now. Strutsenko, championship leader if I'm not mistaken, with the GTDs, currently last, something you don't see very often. Of course, had an incident at the beginning together with Ratiani, and I think Tikhonov indeed was involved as well. Now Strutsenko probably tries to overtake Tikhonov as soon as possible, because the gap to Roscom to P3 is only 4.2 seconds, and with 14 minutes remaining and with possible rain on the way, this battle can still unfold dramatically. Now I want to touch on the driver Ashley Holland, because well, the last time I checked it, our lovely broadcaster, she or he was on 13 incident points. Now I don't know if that's still the same, but of course with those off tracks it will get more and more, and possibly with another collision as well. As we can see, Ashley Holland currently on 15 points, Alexander Strutsenko on 13 points, Tikhonov on 12 points. So there are a few drivers that really need to watch out, and indeed, Jesse, rain.
Rain has arrived to the racetrack on cue a little bit earlier than I expected. I estimated about 10 minutes left to go. We are a little bit shy of that, 14 minutes to go. The wind is bending some of the trees around here, around the racetrack. It's coming in. The front is a little bit of rain. The track not fully engulfed in it now. Now it's raining here in these sets of turns. The windscreen wipers not yet going, and there it is on Theobout Roscom's car. Radiani has gotten by Theobout for P2. Roscom's down to 3rd. They're running P2 quite comfortably. I just feel it is a gap too big for Radiani to come back and overtake Conway for the lead here today. The big drama for the day, though, is your championship leader Strutsenko, as Dan has said, who is running in 5th place, as both Radiani and Strutsenko into the pit lane this time. That is going to shake up the championship complexion going into the final round next week at Le Mans. By the way, while we're on the subject, a big thank you to Ash Bibby and, of course, Jordan Daly as well. Without them, they made very generous donations to purchase tracks so that we could bring you continuing coverage of this series this season, and indeed in the future for iRacing events. We also have had an anonymous 3rd donor as well earlier in the season. So to the 3 of you, thank you so very much. On behalf of everyone here at RCI, we appreciate you not only donating as Ash tends to do in the stream in general, but also directly donating a piece of content, both him and Daly, and an anonymous 3rd donor, so that we can continue to bring you broadcasts. So thank you so much to all of you. Back to the racing. Looks like Bart Matje has had an additional incident. This is shades of Portimao.
Yes.
Just track's getting slick, and that is going to be a more common issue for some of the drivers. And Well, you think putting on the wet tire would prevent that, but it's not always the case. Do bear in mind, though, Dan, Heilman and Hereford Smith came in. They pitted and put on the wet weather tires in LMP2 before the track was even wet.
Yeah, indeed. Really interesting, really complex decision there. It, of course, could have been an avoidance of a second pit stop. They probably saw on the radar or felt like it was going to rain soon. Oh, and that's Bud Matcha locking up, losing the rear and keeping the car on track. But at some point, because iRacing isn't too sensitive on flat spots, but at this point, Bud Matcha probably does have a flat spot, hot tires as well, so he really needs to watch out. And the tricky thing about oh, he goes into pit lane once again. Did he take wrong tires? Could of course be a possibility, because well, he did spin a few times. 48.9 seconds was the gap, and he goes into the pit lane once again. Roscom also coming into pit lane together with Tikhonov, trying to make the most of that wet tires. So interesting to see there. Sundstrom almost having an incident. He does have an incident. So the leader in GTP category is crawling very slowly over the track there. Seems like the LMP2 of Hereford Smith is right there behind or in front of him indeed. So this is the tricky thing. Oh, on the gravel there for Michael Sundstrom. So this is the tricky thing about changing condition. There goes the LMP2 of yeah, indeed, Hereford Smith. This is the tricky thing. As much as almost loses it as almost loses it again. This is the tricky thing about changing conditions. Everyone has to adapt to different lines. If you don't know, the racing line changes from the original dry line if it gets wet. And you can see Sundstrom struggling to keep temperatures in the tires and to cope with that different line. And he's losing a lot of time. But you know who's even losing more time, Jesse? It's Bud Matcha in the second GTP.
We've seen this quite a bit whenever we have rain races, and here it is. Ted Edwards and Holland back at it again, post pit stop this time. They were 3 seconds apart after Holland spun the car, but Holland's made that up. He's going to try that same move. Tried this earlier in the dry, but it didn't come off. They didn't make contact on the second time asking, but this time it has stuck. And there you have it. Holland's going to take P3. Ted Edwards is going to slide out a little bit, but no harm, no foul. They all keep going as this weather, it's coming in hot and heavy, folks, or cold and heavy in this case. It is pouring rain out there right now. This is significantly heavier than what they would have been used to. The dark clouds certainly here, and this track has gone incredibly wet now, and there's no real dry line to speak of, but I can just barely...
That Sundstrom on the gravel there lost control of his car at the middle of the track, and so is almost everyone else. Let's see if he can get a replay of that. But Michael Sundstrom had an enormous incident there as Bud Matcha. The GTPs can't seem to keep it on track, but there's no threat because Bud Matcha currently driving 1 minute behind. And this is the incident I was talking about. Sundstrom just went straight, yes, and he tried to correct in the wall, keeps it out of the wall. There's a great save by Sundstrom, but that was almost a huge incident for the current championship leader. But we can see, Jesse, everyone is struggling in the wet. So are the GTPs, so are the LMP2s, so are the GTDs as well, and it doesn't stop. We can see a replay of Ted Edwards here, just not finding his braking points and can't seem to slow the car down, cutting the track all you like. And I think a few cars will have a drive-through with the incident points they will collect.
It's certainly very possible, and you know, the camera does a really poor job of picking up just how hard it's raining and how difficult this is. The track is completely glazed over, and we saw Ted Edwards go off, and now Bud Matcha's off again. Mikhail Sundstrom's fighting the car at every turn, nearly made it to the wall. I was gonna make the reference, oh, and he's off again here is Ted Edwards, but
I'd love to be in this race.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that nearly on pace Acura out there in front of the field. A couple of instances where that could have went really wrong. Mikhail Sundstrom getting the car back in line saying, "Not today, Satan." And I think pretty much everybody now just trying to keep it out of the barriers. This is going to feel like an eternity, these final 6.5 minutes of this race. Radiani is running Harry Conway down. That was a 20-second gap at the worst. It's down to 17.3, but will it be just a little bit too much of a gap here? I feel like Harry Conway can basically put the car into safe mode here and limp this thing around for 6.5 minutes left to go. The gap between Sundstrom and Macha was well over a minute. It was a minute 15, and it's now under 50 seconds. So even with all those spins, Mikael Sundstrom taking it very well. Nope, it's just reset. In fact, it said it was under 50 seconds, and now it snapped back to the original time. So who do you believe? I don't know, but there is a battle for P3 and GTD.
Yes, indeed, and the CDD seems to, well, be relatively clean here on a very soaked racetrack it is, and we have a really nice fight coming up here as Strutsenko has no view at all. He gets absolutely blinded going into turn 1. You can see the absolutely insane spray coming off both Porsches there. Roskamp trying to battle Tikhonov trying to battle Roscoe. I have no idea who ahead to, but I think Tikhonov kept his P3, and it's Roskamp going wide, needing to take an alternative line on the outside. Strutsenko can take over P4 if they don't make any contact, and so Strutsenko does overtake P4, driven by the Porsche of Roskamp. And the gap is indeed to the GTP leader, Bart Macha, 52.3 seconds. So everyone needs to get used to the wet now, or your position is immediate danger. Again, Bart Macha goes around, doesn't hit the wall. Lots of room with those gravel traps, Jesse, but Bart Macha and the GTPs still struggling to conquer the wet. And I think Bart Macha, we just saw him come in 10 minutes earlier. I don't think that was for another change of tires. I do think it was a drive-through because he picked up a lot of penalty points.
That's a very good call, and we'll see right here if that is indeed the case. And 22 for Bart Macha, you are spot on with that. Everybody else, the nearest, a bunch of cars with 15. Daly, of course, is retired, but Holland and Roskamp both on 15 points apiece as well. You've got Strutsenko, who's now on 14. They're the next nearest with Tikhonov on 13. And Ted Edwards, who has 12 currently. Everybody else has less, not in immediate danger. Remember, you get 17 X's in iRacing. That's 17 incidents, whether that's contact, running off the racetrack, cutting the course, etc., and so forth, spinning out. And then you get a drive-through penalty for incident points, the 349 here of Hereford Smith, who has had a largely uneventful day in P2. Finally runs off the racetrack just a little bit there, but in comparison to some of the other offs we've seen, case and point here, it's not been that bad. Tikhonov is going to surrender P3 to Strutsenko. Strutsenko was stranded in 5th place for this entire race after the early incident, but somehow has driven back to a podium.
Yes, well, brain can change. Some drivers love it, some drivers hate it. I suspect all of the GTP drivers hate it, but Strutsenko currently on P3 on a run. P2 seems a little bit of a far shot. 17.1 seconds is the gap. Telemetry does seem to, have a tough time with this wet weather. Holland, a yellow flag that could potentially make a move for Ted Edwards, but it's a long way as he seems to get going once again. Ashley Holland there, or with the LMP2. Is that Ashley Holland? No, that is actually Ashley Holland in the Yorkshire T livery. Needs to avoid all those GTD cars, and is currently doing so. So all the chaos commences here at the late stages of the race, with, of course, rain affecting everybody, as we can see. It's not a rainy track, it's a soaked track, as we can see. Indeed, the mistake from Ashley Holland can't slow down the car because of the rain, and it's a story we'll probably see a lot more in the remaining 2 minutes and 7 seconds as Bart Macha goes around once again, because there are yellow flags behind his name. We can see a race replay. Yes, losing the rear end, touching the wall. No, he doesn't. It just doesn't. It's millimeter work, Jesse.
Yeah, that was in Biadetti, the chicane that makes up 13 and 14. A very interesting place to go off. It's more deadly, I feel like, in other sims versus iRacing, but Macha's coming back down the pit lane here. Benjamin Heilman's had it off, and this could be huge. That was a massive gap that has started to come down. Here is the
Oh,
two-tone green machine of Benjamin Heilman, who has led every step of the way the last few weeks, has had a dominant season, all things considered, but a little bit of a slip up there. Luckily, had a incredible gap and has been able to recover 7 seconds to the good here, and just about one more lap. Here comes Mikael Sundstrom thundering down the pit straight. They will begin the final lap of this race. Let's take a look here. What's happened to Ted Edwards as well? Under control, not under control, hydroplaning, and almost, Dan, a few times today, it looks like the gravel trap has saved some of these cars. Will it happen for Bart Macha here again? And he's off the racetrack. He's trying to stay out of the way of the GTDs here, and he's going to do exactly that by not being involved. He's almost getting lapped here by the GTP leader, and in fact, he will. The nearly on pace Acura goes by the connection lost Cadillac, and that is a full lap ahead for Mikael Sundstrom. Benjamin Heilman's bend it again. And it's a big bend. The leader in LMP2, that gap has all but erased itself.
It's gonna be a close one, but he needs to keep his head cool. Oh, he's done it again in the gravel trap, or is this a replay? This is indeed a replay. Excuse me. And well, the gap is 2.7 seconds, and he really needs to keep it clean because this is not the last lap for the LMP2 drivers, because as you can see in the minimap, the GTP drivers, they already started another lap, so the LMP2 drivers need to drive another lap as well as the GTD drivers. Jesse's stressing for the win of Benjamin
I really wish you would have told me that.
Our lovely broadcaster, of course, he's currently struggling. 2.2 seconds, 2.1 seconds. Gap is now down in the 1 second marker, the 1 second gap, and we can see the GTP almost being faster than the GT, or the GTD almost being faster than the GTP. Benjamin Heilman needing really to cross his fingers, but Matthias Sundstrom through the last corner, trying to overtake another lap car, probably his last lap car of the day, Strutsenko. But in any case, he kept it not always on track, but it is enough to finish P1. Sundstrom finishes in P1 at the Mugello Raceway in his 5th round of the IMSA racing season, Jesse.
Mikael Sundstrom in championship form here today as well. A couple of little foibles that will not darken his day, unlike it has the weather here. And he's going to win that class, and everybody else now streaming through, and just hopefully, and the reason I responded the way I did was because you didn't want to have to do an extra lap here today in these conditions. You wanted it to be over, but Benjamin Heilman didn't have an option. They have to go around, and they've got to be immaculate here on this final lap. No mistakes, because Hereford Smith is right behind them. They have erased a gap that was spanning nearly 20 seconds earlier on today, and it's just about that close. Coming through the area where they had the incident, the Arboretta, the last time through, no drama this time, through Arboretta 2. It's Capriar into turn 10. Pelagio, the next set of corners here for your leader in LMP2. This is the closest battle. Everybody else has sort of settled it amongst themselves. Harry Conway, of course, will be coming to the line as well. I don't think they've actually finished Has Conway. I believe they are still on a lap as well. So these cars still yet to finish. The entire top 3, I believe, in LMP2 have not finished in the top 2 in GTD. Here's Hereford Smith trying to make up that gap. It was as close as 3 seconds. It's up to about 4 seconds now, and it's all pins and needles for Benjamin Heilman. One more corner left to go. Turn number 15 in the pit straight. Don't go wide here, and he will just about cap off the day. Heilman, we talked about Sundstrom looking like champion-elect in GTP. The very same for Heilman in LMP2.
And he's done great, and just enough to keep Herford Smith behind, coming out of Puccina, corner 15, and it's an amazing win for Harry Conway as well. And 0.9 seconds behind him is Rattiani. Rattiani, of course, had an incident which piled a few cars behind him up, but well, he comes home in a probably deserving so P2. Ashley Holland comes in front of that Edwards. They've battled the whole race through, and well, a little bit of a godsend for Holland that he could finally pass that Edwards and get that P3 on his name. That Edwards followed by P4, and I think all cars are finished now. But Jesse, this was a race full of commotion and definitely full of a chaotic spectacle.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of drivers here on RCI who are silently, and maybe not so silently, cursing Tom Bryant right now for the weather pattern that we've had today. But hey, that's the nature of the beast. As a race car driver, you've got to be prepared for everything, even when it's this extreme. We went from extreme heat and a slick racetrack to an absolute deluge here at the end of it, and that just shows you how quickly the weather can change here in Italy and how different the race can be. Many spins were had throughout this race, but more notably towards the end. But three very deserving winners here is the spruce pine trees, all of them bending back here with the wind and the storm blowing through. Sundstrom wins it. Heilman and Conway, your winners in all the classes. And what a return for Conway. A win in a different sim for him. And what a race that was. It's going to take a lot. I think a lot of the drivers, unlike us, we're going to be talking about this for some time. I think the drivers just want to get to Le Mans, get me back to France.
What kept me back to France isn't something you hear every day, but
whatever do you mean, Dan?
they might want if it's not going to rain, because like we saw last time around at Le Mans 2023, when rain gets at that track, it can be really difficult to even keep your car on track, let alone not end up in the barriers. But we started with a bright, sunshiny Autodromo del Mugello, and we ended with a very rainy, a very cold Autodromo del Mugello. Well, what a spectacle it has been. I can't wait for this finale on Le Mans, because well, the championships definitely in the GTD category has been hustled up a little bit.
Yeah, my heart goes out to Thea about Roscom. They were P2. They're going to end up P5 today. And if they would have finished second, and especially with Strutsenko in fifth, where they spent most of the day, it could have been, it's a tale of what might have been is what it is. And unfortunately for Roscom, it's not gone their way. They will continue to fight. They may have taken P3 posthumously, but I think any opportunity for advancement past that has now passed. But different winner in GTD, of course, and everybody else staying the course. Even when it didn't look like that, it wasn't an easy day for Sundstrom. It wasn't an easy day for Benjamin Heilman. They both had their little mistakes there when the rains came in, and I was a little bit worried for Heilman and LMP2. They came in and put the wet weather tire on early on a dry track, and I was wondering how that may come into play, but it ended up not coming into play at all, and they all got to the line, albeit having to do an extra lap. Mikael Sundstrom has just been almost unbeatable, it feels like, this season. Heilman, after the sort of frustration that was season one, has come back with a vengeance here to make sure that everybody knows that, look, I am the guy. I am him. And it has been some entertaining racing, to say the least.
Yeah, indeed, it has, and well, I just can't seem to wait more. I've really got nothing to add on. There's so many things happen. I really do need a night of sleep to comprehend what has happened here today. And well, once again, I just can't wait for Le Mans, Jesse.
Sure thing. We'll be live next Thursday for the conclusion of Season 2 of IMSA here on RCI TV. And that is live from Le Mans, a track that needs no introduction, so I shall not give it one. And it's going to be a brilliant 60-minute finale. Weather, who knows? It is France after all, but some battles for the final podium positions yet to be decided. Will be live next week here on RCI TV. Speaking of, we'll be live tomorrow for the finale of GT2, and that over on ACC. They're at Spa-Francorchamps for the finale. A lot of the teams I saw practicing this week, they were not quite sure what they had in store. Such a close championship points race. All top three positions, or top three spots in both categories, are up for grabs here in the final week for GT2 tomorrow. That live here on RCI as well. Team Jag versus Team V12 continues on Monday. Circuit of the Americas. On Saturday, we're at the Circuit of the Americas as well for the next round of the World Tour. And, of course, new signups going live this weekend. If you like iRacing, if you want more iRacing, well, we've got one for you. Watkins Glen, 2-hour, 40-minute race coming at you on the 25th of May. Signups available, racerci.com. The new Wednesday Champ is up as well. Wednesday Sprint Championship. That's an interesting series. GT3 machinery in ACC, but two 30-minute races instead of the standard 60, 70, 80, 90-minute races. Two 30-minute races every week instead. Round number one, two 30-minute races. Kyle Lamy. You can sign up for that and more at racerci.com. Finally, a big thank you to our partners that make this race and every race possible. Of course, AK Esports, Driver 61, Fanatec, digitalmotorsport.com, and Go Setups. We thank you so much for your continued partnership. With that all said, and with the rain absolutely chucking it down, that's just about all we have time for. Congratulations to our winners here on the penultimate round here in Italy. We'll see you next week in France for the finale. On behalf of the entire team here, I've been Jesse Lee, joined by Dan Van Zudva and Ash Bibby behind the cameras. Thank you all very much for watching, liking, subscribing, and following. And until next time, have a good night.
Bye.